Chosen one, focus completely on this message right now. That subtle feeling you've been carrying, the one whispering that something is about to change. Stop brushing it off, because what is approaching will not introduce itself. There will be no alert, no countdown, no dramatic sign in the sky. It will simply appear. And when it does, everything will shift in a single instant. Right now, the enemy is putting in relentless effort for one reason only. He knows what is about to enter your life, and he cannot stop it. So instead, he is trying to stop you. He is trying to keep you distracted, drained, and filled with doubt just long enough to make you miss the exact moment it arrives. But you are not going to miss it. Not this time. Not today. This week marks the end of it all. The waiting, the questioning, the silence that stretched so long it began to feel permanent. But understand this clearly. It is not ending because of timing or luck. It is ending because of what you've already done. Because of the prayers you spoke when no one was watching. Because you stood firm when everything inside you wanted to give up. Think back to that moment this week when you almost said something you would have regretted. When a situation hit you without warning, and every part of you wanted to react, defend yourself, explain everything. But something stopped you. You stayed silent. You walked away. You released it. You thought that was weakness. You believed that silence cost you something. But the truth is that silence was a weapon. That moment of restraint was not a loss. That was the final signature. That was the act that confirmed the enemy's removal from your situation. You did not ruin anything. You completed everything. You did not come across this message by chance. No system or algorithm placed this in front of you. This moment was divinely arranged long before you ever arrived here. And you are here at the exact second you are meant to be, for the exact purpose you are meant to fulfill. Do not scroll away. Do not let this play in the background while your attention drifts elsewhere. Your future self needs you present right now. Because if you disconnect, you leave before the final decision over your life is revealed. In the next few moments, you're going to understand the decree that cancels every assignment formed against what is coming to you. You're going to recognize the exact moment this week when you unknowingly activated your breakthrough. And by the end, you will receive the declaration that seals this open door so tightly that nothing the enemy attempts can reverse what has already been set in motion. Stay until the very end. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere around you hasn't just been quiet. It has felt heavy, like pressure sitting on your chest that you cannot explain or shake, like the stillness before something massive arrives. Maybe this week you've been moving through your days feeling out of sync, like you are one step behind, as if everyone else is moving in normal time while you are pushing through something thick and unseen. Or maybe you woke up in the middle of the night, lie in the darkness with your heart beating faster than usual, carrying a feeling you couldn't name but couldn't ignore. It feels like you are suspended, standing in a space between the life that was and the life that was promised. And from where you stand, you cannot clearly see either side. And in that space, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie. He has been telling you that what is coming has been delayed because of you. He has been replaying a certain moment in your mind repeatedly. The moment you pulled back, went silent, stopped pushing and let something go. He has been labeling that moment as your biggest mistake. He has been telling you that your silence, your stillness, your refusal to fight cost you the very thing you have been believing for. But listen carefully to what is actually true. What you are experiencing is not a cycle restarting. It is a conclusion being finalized. The heaviness you feel is not punishment pressing down on you. It is completion. It is the weight of something ending so completely that it cannot return. It is the final tension before something breaks permanently. What you believed was your moment of failure was not failure at all. It was a final move. It was a strategy that had been building the entire time. You did not disqualify yourself. You did not delay anything. You did not reset what was already set in motion. You brought it to completion. And what is coming will arrive suddenly, without warning, without announcement, without giving you time to prepare. But you don't need preparation. You are already prepared. You have already done the work. The only thing remaining now is to receive. And now that you understand you are prepared, now that the truth is settled within you, that you have already carried out the final step, this is what changes next. Because being ready is not passive. Readiness is not sitting still with folded hands, waiting for heaven to place something before you. Readiness is an active spiritual stance. It is a choice to stop replaying the delay and begin functioning from a reality of what has already been established. It is a confident posture of someone who knows the battle has already been secured in the unseen realm and is now simply waiting for it to appear in the physical world. This kind of active readiness is like a coiled spring releasing, a ship launching into motion, or a seed breaking to the soil with an unshakable inner certainty of its purpose. It is a quiet, sacred voice within you declaring, "It is finished." Even while your eyes are still watching the process unfold, you are no longer just hoping. You are certain. You are no longer waiting for approval. You are acting from position. This shift in posture opens the pathways of the divine to move, forming an energetic current that draws the future into the present. It is a living alignment, not a still expectation. Consider what took place with Elijah on Mount Carmel. The land was dry, cracked, and desperate for water, a reflection of years of drought brought on by spiritual rebellion. The sky was an endless, harsh blue, offering no sign of rain. There was no scientific indication, no shift in pressure, no breeze carrying moisture. Yet before the rain arrived, before even a single cloud appeared, before there was any physical proof that change was coming, Elijah told Ahab to rise and eat because he could hear the sound of abundant rain. He heard it before it existed in the natural world. He perceived it in the spirit. Think about the boldness of that moment, the unshakable certainty in his voice as he declared this in the middle of a barren land, speaking to a king who had grown used to false prophets and empty words. Elijah stood alone as a channel of divine insight, tuning his spiritual hearing to something beyond human understanding. And that ability to hear, that willingness to speak what had not yet appeared, was not arrogance. It was alignment. It was a deep connection to the heart and will of God. He was not creating something out of nothing. He was agreeing aloud with what had already been decided in heaven, echoing a decree that was already established in the spiritual realm. He was acting as a witness, testifying to a truth already set in motion. Then he went to pray 7 times. Each prayer rooted him deeper, each one strengthening the declaration, a persistent knocking at heaven's door. It was not desperation, but a steady and confident call. On the 7th time, a cloud the size of a man's hand appeared on the horizon, a small, distant sign barely visible. But that small cloud was enough. It was a mark in the empty sky, a prophetic glimpse, a visible sign of an unseen certainty, because Elijah understood what it represented. He did not just see a cloud. He saw the end of the drought, the downpour that would satisfy an entire nation, the confirmation of divine power. His spiritual vision expanded the small into something significant. You were standing in your own cloud the size of a man's hand moment, that small spark of hope, that first visible shift, that initial ripple breaking the stillness of your waiting. What you see right now may appear small. It may seem unimportant, almost not worth mentioning. It may not resemble the fullness of what was promised, perhaps only a faint outline, a shadow of what is coming. But the real question is not whether you can see the entire sky filled with thunder and lightning yet. The question is whether you understand what that small movement represents, whether your spiritual awareness is sharp enough to recognize the seed of destiny. Because the enemy, in his subtle way, will use the smallness of the beginning to make you doubt the greatness of the ending. He will point at that fragile cloud and say, "That's all there is, a temporary moment that will fade away." He will tell you not to get excited, to lower your expectations, to guard yourself against disappointment. He will disguise discouragement as wisdom and tell you to be realistic, to come back to what is practical, to settle for less than what your heart truly longs for. He will argue based on what your senses can perceive, challenging what your spirit knows. He wants you to dismiss the first drop as insignificant instead of recognizing it as the beginning of a flood. But you were never called to be realistic. You were called to be faithful to what you heard. Realistic belongs to a fallen world. Faithfulness belongs to the kingdom. Your calling goes beyond the limits of logic. Your assignment is grounded in a deeper truth, a higher reality, the unshakable word that echoed within your spirit. What you heard was not a rumor, not a passing thought, not imagination. What you heard came from the same voice that spoke light into darkness, bringing existence out of nothing, the same voice that called things into being before they existed, forming stars and galaxies with a word, the same voice that has been speaking over your life since before you even had a name, shaping your destiny across time and eternity. This is the voice of your Creator, the designer of your purpose, and His word does not return empty. It carries within it the power to fulfill itself. Now, here is where it goes even deeper. There is something happening beneath the surface of your situation that you must understand before the door fully opens, before the flow of blessings is completely released. The enemy knows that if he cannot stop the blessing, if he cannot cancel what has already been declared over your life, then his next strategy is to corrupt the way you receive it. He does not need to stop what is coming. He only needs to contaminate it. He simply needs to ensure that when it arrives, you receive it through the wrong perspective, a distorted lens that reduces its power and joy, through a lens of fear that causes you to constantly expect it to fade or be taken away, through a lens of unworthiness that convinces you that you do not truly deserve it, stopping you from fully embracing it, through a mindset that says, this is too good to be real, it won't last, something will go wrong, keeping you trapped in constant anxiety and suspicion. These lenses are not small issues. They are spiritual poisons designed to cancel out the very good that heaven intends for you, because a blessing received through fear becomes a burden, a heavy weight that presses down on you instead of lifting you up. What was meant to bring freedom becomes another form of captivity, a gift you are afraid of losing. A door you walk through in panic turns into a prison. What was open begins to feel like confinement because your fear stops you from stepping fully into the freedom beyond it. You may enter physically, but your heart stays stuck in the previous season. And when you step into a season of favor without a clear identity, without knowing who you are in Christ, it will eventually be sabotaged by the one it was given to, you. Because without understanding your divine calling, you may mishandle, misuse, or even destroy the very things meant to move you forward. This is exactly what happened with Saul. He was chosen, lifted from obscurity, and anointed by the prophet Samuel with oil that marked divine selection. He was placed as the first king of Israel, given authority and a powerful assignment to lead God's people. But he never truly embraced who he was called to be. His foundation was unstable, built on insecurity instead of divine confidence. He constantly compared himself to others, especially David, allowing outside opinions to shape how he felt inside. He performed for people, chasing their approval instead of standing firmly in his purpose. Secure in the identity God had given him, he wore the crown for applause, not for calling. And when David appeared, a young shepherd whose favor began to rise, the moment it seemed like what Saul had was shifting towards someone else, fear took control. That fear guided his choices, damaged his relationships, and slowly corrupted his heart. A leader driven by fear becomes destructive, reacting to perceived threats, manipulating situations, and eventually trying to destroy the very person meant to carry the next part of God's plan. Not because God removed his calling, but because Saul never developed the identity to sustain it. He never truly believed he deserved the crown. So he became controlled by the opinions of others, losing sight of what God had already declared over his life. His fear ultimately created the very downfall he feared. So before this open door becomes everything it is meant to be, before you fully step into the life that has been prepared for you, heaven is asking you to do something that may feel uncomfortable, even unnatural. Something that goes against what you may be used to. Heaven is asking you to stop shrinking, to stop making yourself smaller, quieter, less visible, less powerful just to fit into spaces that were never designed for you. To stop apologizing in advance for what is about to come into your life. The blessings, the favor, the opportunities, the calling that will clearly set you apart. Stop trying to manage how comfortable others feel with the real version of you that is emerging. You have spent too long dimming your light, hiding your gifts, holding back your voice so others would not feel overshadowed or uncomfortable. You have limited yourself out of fear of how your growth might affect others. But that season is over now. The time of holding back has ended. It is time to stand fully in who you are, to take your place in the space you were created to occupy. You were not chosen to fit into the room. You were chosen to change it. You were not meant to blend in with what already exists. You are meant to bring transformation. You carry the presence, the light that breaks through darkness. Your existence shifts environments, challenges what is normal, and introduces something higher. Accept the powerful disruption that comes with who you are. And what comes next, stay with me, because this is the part many people are not ready for. The truth that often makes people uncomfortable. What is coming is not only a blessing, it is also exposure. What God is bringing into your life, whether it is resources, influence, relationships, or new opportunities, will also reveal what is inside you. It will shine light on your intentions, your hidden thoughts, your unhealed areas, and the true state of your heart. This is not something to fear. It is a gift. It is grace. Because you cannot carry what is coming, the responsibility, the weight of the next level, while still holding on to limiting beliefs, unresolved fears, and unchecked motives. Your capacity must expand before the blessing arrives. Otherwise, the blessing will come and have nowhere to settle. Like water striking a sealed container, it spills over and is wasted. This exposure is God's gentle yet firm way of preparing you, not just to receive the blessing, but to sustain and manage it. It is an invitation to look within, a divine cleansing that creates room for greater glory. Think about the widow with the oil in the book of 2 Kings, a powerful illustration of this truth. She stood on the edge of despair, facing complete loss, with her sons about to be taken into slavery. Elisha did not bring oil from an outside source or create it out of nothing. Instead, he asked her what she already had in her house, directing her attention inward and challenging her view of lack. She believed she had almost nothing, just a small jar of oil, a resource that seemed insignificant, barely enough to last another day. But he instructed her to gather empty vessels, as many as she could find. This was the key instruction, the expansion of expectation, the preparation of space. Not just a few, but as many as possible, pushing beyond what she thought was enough. Then he told her to pour. That was the act of obedience, the step of faith into uncertainty. The oil did not multiply while she was thinking about it. It did not multiply while she was collecting vessels, even though that step was necessary. It did not multiply while she was planning or organizing. It multiplied in the act of pouring, in the movement of faith. And it continued to multiply, flowing supernaturally until she ran out of vessels to fill, until her capacity to receive was exhausted. Those vessels were not just physical containers. They represented capacity. They symbolized expectation, the spiritual containers you bring before God. They reflect how much you are willing to believe for the reach of your imagination when it comes to divine provision. And what heaven is saying right now is this: it is time to gather more vessels. It is time to expand your expectations, to break open limiting beliefs, and allow the seeds of abundant faith to take root. Because the oil will not run out. God's supply is limitless. His generosity has no boundaries. His source never dries up. The only thing that stops the flow, the only restriction on the miraculous, is a lack of vessels. It is the limit you place on what you are ready to receive. Your limitation is not God's willingness. Your limitation is the size of what you are asking him to fill. He is not restricted by your situation. He is only limited by the boundaries of your belief and the space you create to receive. And once that begins to change within you, and it is shifting even now as you read this, a quiet adjustment in your spirit, a release of old limitations. Something else must follow. This is where the true turning point exists. Most people come incredibly close to breakthrough, and then step back at the very edge of it. They get close enough to sense it, to almost experience it, to feel its presence, and then they disqualify themselves right at the threshold. They begin to create reasons to pause, delay, or withdraw from what they've been longing for. They say things like, "I'm almost there," or "I just need a little more time," or "maybe in the next season." These statements sound wise. They appear thoughtful and careful. But in reality, they are fear wearing the language of wisdom. They are polished excuses hiding a deeper hesitation to fully step into what God has prepared. They are delay disguised as preparation, a subtle trap that keeps you from moving forward. This is one of the enemy's most refined strategies, to stop you just before you cross over. There is something else you need to see. There's been an unseen agreement shaping your life. Something that sounds like faith but has actually been functioning as a ceiling, an invisible barrier keeping certain blessings just out of reach. And once you recognize it, once it is brought into the light, You'll understand why certain things have been close but never fully arrived, why breakthroughs felt near but never fully happened. But before that, this truth must settle deeply within you. You've been treating your preparation as if it is never complete, as if there's always one more step, one more lesson, one more improvement needed before you can move forward. You've been living in a constant state of almost ready, standing at the edge but never fully stepping in. Now you must confront this honestly. At what point does preparation become an excuse to avoid action? At what point does the process meant to strengthen you become a place you hide in, a space where you feel safe from the responsibility of your calling? Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness being prepared, living a simple life, stripped of his former identity. But there came a moment when the burning bush appeared, filled with divine presence, and God said, "Now," not later, not after more preparation, not when he felt confident or free from doubt. Now. And Moses still hesitated. He questioned. He tried to disqualify himself, pointing to his weaknesses, his lack of ability. He relied on human reasoning in the face of divine command. But heaven does not wait for you to feel ready. Heaven waits for your yes. A clear, unwavering yes to what you're being called into, even if you feel uncertain, even if your voice shakes, even if fear is still present. Readiness is not the requirement. Obedience is. And you've already been saying yes, just in fragments, in quiet moments, in unseen prayers whispered in the dark, when it felt like no one was listening. These were quiet commitments, whispered desires, small acts of surrender offered in uncertainty. But what you could not see, what remained hidden from your earthly perspective, is that heaven was gathering every one of those fragmented yes, every hesitant agreement, every tear-filled moment of surrender. They were being collected, assembled, and formed into one powerful moment of completion that secured your breakthrough. And that moment has already happened. You have already crossed it without even realizing it, like stepping over an unseen finish line. The decision has been made. The previous chapter is closed. What you are entering now is not the test. It is not the preparation. It is not the wilderness. What you are stepping into now is the promise, the inheritance, the season of growth and visible fulfillment. The wilderness fulfilled its role. The preparation has ended. This is a crossing over. This is a beginning of occupying what has been prepared for you. Now here is the part many people struggle to face, because it demands deep honesty. The kind of truth that strips away every layer of self-protection. The part people often avoid because it speaks too directly, too deeply. It confronts the stories we have built around our struggles. The thing that has been blocking the full expression of what God promised you is not the enemy's attack, although those attacks were real. It is not the betrayal you went through, though the pain was real. It is not the closed doors, the people who walked away, or the long seasons that stretched beyond what you expected. Those experiences were real. They were difficult. They shaped you and refined you, but they were not the block. The real barrier has been this. You have been believing God for the promise, while at the same time believing that you are the exception. This is the hidden lie that has held you back. You believe that God works miracles. You believe the testimonies you hear, the stories of healing, provision, and breakthrough. You believe the truth of Scripture and the reality of divine favor. You believe that God moves in powerful, supernatural ways. But you believe it for others, for those you see as more deserving, more chosen, more qualified. And deep beneath that belief, beneath everything you say you believe outwardly, there's been a quiet agreement within you, a silent contract with doubt that says people like you do not receive the full promise. That something in your story, your past mistakes, your perceived flaws, your struggles, your history, places a limitation on what you can receive. That you are the exception, the one who almost receives it, but not fully, the one who gets close, but never completely there. And that belief has acted like a ceiling, an invisible barrier above you, not because God placed it there. He never did, but because you kept reinforcing it. Every time something didn't happen when you expected it to, every time a prayer seemed unanswered, every time you saw someone else step into what you had been waiting for, you took it as proof of that lie. Instead of seeing it as a moment to remain steady, to hold your position, you allowed it to confirm the belief that you are the exception. Think again about Elijah after Mount Carmel. He had just witnessed fire come down from heaven. He had seen undeniable proof of God's power. He had stood against hundreds of false prophets and seen victory. He had declared rain before it appeared and watched it come. And then one person, Jezebel, sent a threat, and he ran. He ran in fear, collapsed under a tree, and said, "It is enough." He believed he was alone. He fell into the lie of isolation and exhaustion right after one of the greatest victories of his life. Even he began to feel like the exception. And God did not condemn him for it. God did not rebuke him or shame him. Instead, God fed him. God gave him rest. He cared for him in his weakness. And then, after restoring him, God said, "The journey is too great for you. Get up and eat again." In other words, the next phase required a stronger, restored version of him, one that could not move forward in a depleted state. And the same is true for you. What lies ahead is too great for the version of you that has been operating from fear, exhaustion, and the belief that you are the exception. You cannot step into what is coming while carrying unworthiness and doubt. But you are not being asked to do this in your own strength. You are being invited to receive, to allow yourself to be filled, restored, and strengthened before stepping into what comes next. This is not about trying harder. It is about being renewed. Because what is coming into your life will require a version of you that is nourished, restored, and whole. A version of you that has been healed from the inner wounds and freed from the lies that try to define your identity. The version of you that has stopped running from who you truly are and has begun to receive the full measure of God's love and acceptance. That is the version stepping forward now. And this receiving starts right here, in this sacred and defining moment. It begins the moment you finally stop seeing yourself as the exception. The moment you tear apart the hidden agreement of limitation and accept that everything God has spoken, every promise, every declaration, every word of hope and purpose, was spoken to you, not around you, not near you, but directly, personally, and intimately to you. You are the one it was meant for. This is the verdict. This is a decree that has already been spoken over your life in the courts of heaven, sealed with divine authority and unchangeable truth. And now you are hearing it here on earth, so that what is established above can be released below, so that what exists spiritually can finally appear in your physical reality. This is the breaking of the ceiling. This is the opening of what was once held back. Every assignment formed against you is canceled. Every plan meant to block, steal, or destroy is now powerless. The delay has ended. Its time has passed, and the waiting season is over. The silence is lifted, and a new sound is rising, a sound of restoration and breakthrough. And what is moving toward you right now carries your name, not someone else's, not meant for another. It has been prepared specifically for you, not for some future version of you that does not yet exist, but for you as you are right now in this moment. You are ready. You are worthy. Now place your hand over your chest and say this out loud, because declarations are not just emotional words. They are spiritual alignment. They mark your position. They signal what you are choosing to stand in agreement with, bringing your reality into alignment with what has already been established. And what you are about to speak is not a wish. It is not a request for something you lack. It is a statement of what has already been decided, a confirmation of truth. Say this now: I am not the exception. I am the one this message was meant for. Every prayer I have spoken in private has been heard, and nothing has been wasted. The silence I experienced was not abandonment. It was preparation. The restraint I showed was not weakness. It was a final step that secured my breakthrough. I released every belief that said I was too late, too flawed, or too far behind. I released every limitation I created out of disappointment. I stepped fully into this season, without apology, without shrinking, and without waiting for permission that has already been given. The door is open and I walk through it now. What has been declared over my life cannot be reversed, cannot be taken, and cannot be delayed any longer. I receive it, all of it. I am ready and I am enough. If something within you responded to this, if you felt a shift while reading or hearing it, even if you cannot fully explain it yet, do not ignore it or let it fade into the noise of your day. That feeling matters. It is a signal. It is confirmation. Share this message with someone who may also be standing between what was and what is promised, because they were not meant to miss it either. And leave a response. not for attention, but as a declaration. Acknowledge that you have received this. Make it known that you recognize the truth, because even that act of acknowledgement is part of breaking what once held you back. Do not skip it.